From our new logo
to our new theme tune.
This week, we're discussing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, and La Talon.
This is the all-new Film Angle. Welcome to the Film Angle, a podcast where we dive deep into the latest releases and unearth the classics to better our cinephilic curiosity. I'm Alex.
And I'm Kris.
Let's get into it.
Alex, this is a brand new lick of paint, to say the least.
Absolutely. We are brand spanking new-ish. We're not new as a podcast, but like you said, the lick of paint, brand new. A new logo, a new theme tune, a new color palette, a new brand. We're rebranded. We are, same people, same name.
Yeah, no body modifications here.
Yes. Same terrible opinions on films.
Questionable
opinions. The only two people to dislike The Fall Guy. But here we are. Apparently so. Everybody dropped off after that episode. Such a shame. We're coming back bigger and better here.
It's kind of what instigated the rebrand, really.
Yes, yeah. We thought we can't be seen with the same faces. So we've completely changed our faces along with the logo, along with everything. But yeah, we alluded to it last week, or not even alluded to it. We spoke about it last week. We're completely rebranded, and if you followed us on Instagram or TikTok, we've kind of been trying to big it up and build up some hype, and I think we've done a relatively good job. Seem to be getting a lot of good feedback in the form of likes and shares and stuff in regards to our new logo and our new branding. So we can't thank enough graphic designer and friend of the podcast, Alfie Hunter-Martin, who went out of his way to create this whole new look for us. So yeah, head over to him and his website and his LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. Check out his work. He's a brilliant graphic designer, and I'm very happy with the job he's done. And not only that, as you may have heard, brand new theme tune. What do you think?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, he was so good to work with. In terms of, like, you give him an idea that wasn't really fully formed. Like, in your head, you're just like, I know what I want, but I can't really articulate it. This is me anyway, Alex. I'm not saying it's you. But he just kind of knew what to deliver, and I'm so happy with the finished product. Both the music and the logo. Yeah, I'm fully invigorated, ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And the theme tune, although we wanted a new one, it was kind of like one of those secondary thoughts, wasn't it? I mean, I knew Alfie had kind of dabbled with music and jingles and stuff for his own work, and I was like, any chance? I don't know how difficult it is. Probably very difficult. Very sorry about that. I was like, but any chance if you want to just make us a theme tune? And he came back with the goods. So very happy about that. So yes, thank you very much, Alfie. But if you have been following us on Instagram, then you'll know that we put out a little message and kind of said, like, because we look like a real podcast, we want to sound like a real podcast. So we're making a few changes here and there. They're not all going to be set in stone right now. I think we're going to experiment with a few things along the way just to try and make this more interesting, a little bit different. We're still going to keep to reviewing films. It's what we do, but maybe add in a few little touches here and there, change up the format occasionally.
Bit of texture.
And also, it'd be nice to have some more guests on, I think. And I think that was something we always held out a little bit on. Maybe because we didn't always feel like we looked like a real podcast, but we look like one now. So maybe we can go out into the world and maybe see if anybody actually wants to come on. And we'll definitely have the Cineboys on at some point. That's been something that we have been gearing up for a while now, especially even more so having appeared on their podcast. So yeah, definitely get the Cineboys on soon. But also maybe we'll go out there and see who else might want to come on the Film Angle. Hey, maybe you want to come on the Film Angle. So drop us a message. Let us know. On top of all that stuff, if you head into the description of our podcast now, you'll find that we actually have chapters, or at least we do if you're on Spotify. But they are in the description either way. So Spotify makes it very easy to kind of automatically go to that point. I'm not sure with the other platforms yet how that goes, but you'll be able to see the minute by minute kind of breakdown of what we talk about, and that kind of helps people in a way, because we do like to chat about films in full here. We don't like to kind of beat around the bush with spoilers too much. So we do understand that when people haven't seen a film, they might not want to listen to the podcast, for fear of spoiling certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But here you'll be able to jump to the bits that you want. Maybe you've only seen Furiosa and you haven't seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes today. You jump to Furiosa and you can listen from that part onwards. So hopefully that just helps people.
Yeah, no
who
fear
might want to
of,
listen to the podcast, but are fearful of when we might actually discuss a certain thing.
Yeah, we did try before at the early days of the podcast to kind of beat around the bush, as you said, but yeah, we just found that it was way, way too difficult to articulate ourselves and maybe give the films their full justice. So yeah, we are kind of a spoiler podcast. So you'll never hear the word spoiler alert because it just is spoiler alert all the time.
Yes. Though I guess maybe on some bigger releases, we try to like give you a little bit of warning on those bigger releases where more people might tune in because they just want to hear about that certain film that's popular right now. Yeah, we'll maybe give them a little bit, but yeah,
Okay.
Just remember we talk about everything on here. But one thing we haven't really spoken about before, and it's something that is a love of both mine and Chris's, is music.
Yeah.
And we thought, why not make a playlist? Like Kris and I love music. We love going to see live music. We've recently been to a few gigs together, and we've got a festival coming up with Alfie as well this summer. So we thought, why don't we put together a playlist which shows what we're listening to right now, and you guys can join in and tell us we have a shit taste in music if you want. The idea is that we'll never leave a song on the playlist for more than 30 days, and we'll just keep populating it with the stuff that we're listening to at the time. And not only does it help give you guys an insight into the kind of stuff we like, it also just helps me and Kris kind of listen to all the recommendations that we have for each other in one place as well. So we'll link to that in the description, where you'll be able to find the Film Angle playlist.
Well, this just means, Alex, I'm going to have to listen to more music. I have to stop slacking and keep my ear to the ground a little bit more.
Oh, come on, Kris! You're a lot better than me. You're always listening to new artists and stuff, and I seem to like find out, like grasp onto like 5 or 6 songs for a short while. So if anything, I think I'm going to have to put more of the work in here.
Well, that kind of comes when you live remotely in the middle of the countryside with nobody around. You kind of have long drives to listen to full entire albums. So you're absolved, Alex. It's I've got the upper hand at that point.
So yeah, the Film Angle playlist. Go and check it out. Let us know what you think.
Well, without further ado, Alex, should we jump into what we do best at the Film Angle? Probably. And that is review some movies.
The first film we are reviewing is The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
That's a real mouthful, isn't it?
It really is. Set many generations after the recently rebooted trilogy that followed Caesar and the rise of the apes becoming more sentient and humans falling to a feral state after a global pandemic, we now follow Noah, an ape who must search for his family after they've been kidnapped and their home destroyed by a kingdom of apes, whose leader believes he is following in the footsteps of Caesar's teachings, which is very problematic because, as we know, ape shall not kill ape, and that seems to have been forgotten or reinterpreted along the way.
Well, that's very well summarized, Alex. Well job. Good job there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so from the outset, this seems like it's going to be something very dense and not very like new user friendly. And it's not quite that, Alex, actually. I think anyone can come into this film pretty fresh and not seen the previous 3, although, like anything, it does help. This is an interesting film. It's kind of one that kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't really aware they were making another one of these. But now it seems like a new trilogy is now spawning out of this. And this is something that, whilst kind of is true to the last 3 films. Does it hold quality? Does it hold its candle up to those previous 3? Probably more people are trying to wonder than anything. Uh, yes and no. This is we'll get into this, but I think this is a pretty solid film for the most part. It has its little problems here and there, but I had a really good time with this thing. It's a really good way to spend 2.5 hours in the cinema. I don't know about you, Alex. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like my relationship with the Apes films is that I've only really seen the rebooted trilogy. I'm very aware of the originals, but I don't think I've actually ever seen any of them in full. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm very much I'm very much a fan of the rebooted trilogy. It seems to be like the most consistently good franchise going, I would say,
Mhm.
potentially. Each one of those films is really good. The Caesar trilogy, which I imagine they'll start calling it now, and yeah, with this one, the Noah trilogy maybe is what they might call it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty solid start. Is it as good as the rebooted ones? Maybe not. But like you said, it's a new beginning in a way. We've got a new director, Wes Ball, who I think is probably most known for his Maze Runner films.
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, I think there was a little bit of hesitation on my part. I kind of knew in the background it was being made. I don't think I've ever gotten like fully excited for an Apes film, despite the fact that I've always really liked them when I've seen them. So
Yeah.
like there was no like anticipation or anything like that. I thought we had a pretty good conclusion, but I was interested to see where they might go next. And I thought potentially they might completely remake Planet of the Apes, the original film, at some point within this new kind of very photorealistic
Mhm.
ape world.
I think we're going to get to that point somewhere down the line.
Do you
If these
reckon?
can, I think they're kind of gearing us up towards that. It, provisionally, if these films are successful enough, we might get
Yeah,
there.
but this one takes a massive time jump, and we do know that the ship from the original film was referenced in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the very first one with James Franco.
Uh huh.
So they must be, doing some kind of interstellar time space mission to come back. I don't know, like 300 years later, whatever this is. But yeah, I mean, I think there was a fear that maybe they weren't. The marketing didn't seem to be geared up towards how incredible the motion capture effects were this time. It seemed to be a really big thing every time like Dawn of the Planets and War of the Planet of the Apes came out.
Hmm.
It was a very big thing of like, it was revolutionary technology. You won't believe how good these apes look. And here it felt like maybe they weren't kind of pushing so much of that in the marketing. And it was just like, hey, the majority of them are apes now, and here they are. And maybe there wasn't as much detail in the CGI.
I think I found that as well. Actually, I agree with you.
Yeah, but then I don't know if it's just YouTube's kind of compression when they take when they take very highly detailed things and have to get it ready for an internet based kind of browser that wants to screen it to you as speedily as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, it didn't look like it was going to look nearly as good. But actually, as soon as the film started, I was like, oh yeah, shit, no, they still look like real apes, and not at one point did the mask ever slip.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing they have to contend with this time is that the apes have evolved to a point that they speak in English, um, or they kind of come in and out of that language all the time. Where before it was really broken English at most, and it was just mostly sign language. So probably they could spend a lot more time animating those faces. Yeah, that was very interesting. I didn't feel like that was a drop in quality at all with this film. I was
No.
like, I watched the trailer. I had the same reservations as you, where I was like, what does this feel like? They just spent a little bit less time on it. But I guess we're more aware now that we're seeing trailers for films way before the final product now. It's kind of
Yeah,
similar to
yeah.
the video game industry in that way. I kind of try not to pay too much attention to that, and kind of, we'll talk about Furiosa, another movie later on that kind of has that similar problem. But no, here I really enjoyed the visual effects. It's very video gamey to begin with this story. We open up with this sort of decayed cityscape where Noah and his close friends are trying to climb the highest skyscrapers to find birds' nests. This is like an eagle tribe where they find an egg at a young age. It's like a coming of age rite where they pick an eagle to kind of bond with for the rest of their lives. And it's kind of evocative of who they are. and their place in the tribe too. So Noah is trying to find, he's trying to climb up to the tallest one and get the perfect egg so that his father can kind of accept him, and there seems to be something going on there. But yeah, it's very video gamey to begin with. The world building is very thought out. Gives you a lot of time to kind of breathe with these characters, enjoy sort of the landscape of the world we are in now, before kicking off everything half an hour later. I enjoyed that aspect of this movie.
You learn a lot about this tribe and how they function, how they work, the relationships between one another. And then, half an hour later, bang, destroyed.
Yeah, it goes.
But there are definitely elements that do come into play later, so it's not a completely lost cause at the start there. But I completely agreed with your kind of thought process with this being very video gamey. You could definitely kind of see yourself role playing, climbing up things. Climbing seems to be a big thing in video games these days, anyway. As the Eagles, I feel like Eagles play a lot into games.
Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, I was about to say, or am I just completely honing in on Assassin's Creed there? But climb up something, grab an eagle, and be on your merry way.
So, as the story progresses, as you said, there's this attack on Noah's village, which his father dies in the combat of it all. It's all burnt to shreds, and his family and friends have been taken captive and taken by this cult of apes who claim to be following the teachings of Caesar. As we can see on screen, they're doing absolutely the opposite. So that creates this kind of element of intrigue pretty early on. See how this is sort of being misinterpreted over the centuries. And that's kind of something I wasn't really expecting in the plot. So as we go on, we follow Noah on his odyssey to go search for his family. But on the way, he picks up a human character who has been kind of hot on his tail, kind of attached to him. She's kind of been following him in the shadows, stealing food here and there, keeping an eye on him. And she's played by Freya Allen. That character is Nova. So the interesting thing here is humans have, as you said, reverted back to that state of being feral, going back to they can't communicate vocally anymore. However, there's a hint here that Nova might be a little bit more advanced than the average human. And when Noah comes across an orangutan called Raka, who is probably the best character.
Yes, completely my favorite character.
100%.
And also they nailed the orangutans. They have done this in every film so far. Don't know what it is. Apes are like pretty much like 99% there. Orangutans, I'm like, are they using a real orangutan? Like, that is how good they nail the orangutans.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I remember watching the last one, War for the Planet of the Apes, and it's like the film was obsessed with having as many close-ups and seeing all the crevices and pores of this orangutan as possible. The fur looks incredible. You're right. The apes look like 90% there, and you're like, okay, I can tell this isn't real, but I'm on board with it. But the orangutan is just like, whoa, okay. Like they invested a lot of time on this, and so they should, because Raka is a really he's a bit more of a flamboyant character in this world, a little bit more of a religious teacher. He kind of tells of the history's past and educates Noah on this journey. Again, very video gamey, very much this type of movie, but he is the absolute star here. And yeah, so these three kind of go on their merry way through trials and tribulations before stopping off at their final destination, which is the kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is run by Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, who is hamming it up in the best possible way. I don't know if he's the best villain we've had in the franchise, but he's given it a good go.
Yeah, he does this. He does a very good thing. What am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is he nails that kind of charismatic leader type who is completely, whether purposely or not, completely missing the mark of reinterpreting.
That's being kind.
These kind of religious readings in the way that we've seen many leaders of countries across the world kind of take religion and shape it to their own personal means and ways. He's, Kevin Durand's, what's his name? Sorry. Proximus Caesar is very much somebody who is fascinated with human stories and the ancient world, and is calling this tribe of apes his kingdom. And again, he thinks he is this second coming of Caesar, and they're camped right outside of a giant, almost like nuclear bunker, isn't it? The idea is that at some point, when everything went to shit, the humans went in here for safety. So it's alluded that whatever's behind these doors will hopefully help him evolve, 10 times faster, knowledge, weapons, all kinds of artifacts that might be in there. For me, I was thinking, like, is this like a nuclear bunker? Are we talking like nuclear weapons? Are the apes going to set off nuclear bombs? What's going on? But yeah, there's a lot of intrigue there. And when Noah finally kind of catches up with them, he's I wouldn't say welcomed in, but he's forced to be part of this camp.
Yeah.
And recognizing his smarts, they put him to work in terms of trying to open this door that they're frantically they're trying to do to get into the vault.
Yeah, Proximus Caesar does that charismatic leader villain type thing with Noah, where he kind of gives him this false sense of home, if you will. He kind of welcomes him to the table with lots of food and a banquet of sorts, and he can live with the resident human, played by William H. Macy.
That was a surprise. Did you know he was going to be in the film?
I didn't know he was in the film at all. No.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a clue. So yeah, when he turned up, I was like, oh, that guy.
Yeah, so William H. Macy's character, he gives Proximus the human teachings. He tells him of the stories. Particularly, Proximus has a fascination with Roman history, and he wants to almost sort of replicate that dynasty. I don't know if he's read the last chapter of the Roman story, though. He might want to get to that part because it didn't really end up too well for them. So yeah, we go for this, and it turns into similar to the War for the Planet of the Apes, where we almost have this sort of the Great Escape type ending, where we are trying to scupper Proximus's plans and also get Noah and his friends and family out of that situation. But also we got that sort of mystery about what is Nova really up to. And I'm interested to hear what you think about this character in the story, Alex, because I was kind of up and down with this character throughout the whole journey.
Well, I guess Nova is probably, not to sound too damning of the film, but I guess my biggest criticism of the film would be the fact that we don't really get any big surprises here. It does play by the numbers. It is, it plays on tropes that we've seen before in other films, not just in other ape films, but other films of this kind. And for a minute, it looks like it's going to turn into The Last of Us, with Noah and this girl forming some kind of bond and becoming very protective of each other. But that's where the surprise happens. It doesn't, which is good. I very much like that. And Nova is somebody who, she's almost using Noah as a means to an end. She doesn't care for the apes. She doesn't want them to be as much in power as they are. She wants things to go back to how they were, a time where humans, well, I say a time when basically what we're living right now. Yeah. And so, yeah, she never really learns otherwise. She's very much willing to kind of kill her way to get what she wants. And what she wants is for Proximus Caesar to not get his hands on the bunker at all. So the idea is get in, grab some kind of data, like some kind of hard drive from inside, and then destroy the place so that the apes cannot get their hands on it, which I guess makes sense. But obviously in this world where we've been taught to very much empathize and sympathize with the apes, or at least the good ones, you do feel a little sad about that. But yeah, she's not really a nice character in a way. She's on her mission and she'll do anything she can to get it done.
Yeah, I agree with that for the most part. I think the movie does give us little moments with her and Noah where we understand that she does feel a little bit of regret for what she inevitably is planning and going to do. I think she has built up enough attachment with Noah and Raka previously that perhaps, it sucks that I'm doing this, but I have to do this sort of thing.
Yeah,
Less out of hate and more of a real obligation to the human cause. But can I say something kind of negative a little bit? We watched this together, right? We went to see this in cinema, and I turned around to you, and this is such a little thing. This sounds so pathetic, but I wasn't really big on how the costume department kind of portrayed the Nova character. I thought that her costume for most of the movie was a bit too fussy, a little bit too overthought, kind of reminded me of the original Planet of the Apes, the way everybody is dressed in like a sort of this sort of rugged chic. You know what I mean? It was sort of like she's coming out of an H&M advert a little bit, but yeah, that kind of bothered me a little bit, kind of took me out and kind of hoodwinked me into knowing that there was something more to this character that these other characters aren't supposed to know, but eventually there's going to be a big turnaround. So I think they could have played that a little bit better.
Yeah. I guess I didn't really bump into the costumes too much. I mean, yeah, I guess I guess the idea is they're supposed to be quite worn in, but they always look kind of artificially worn in, don't they? There's an element
it's like all the other humans that we come across that are like sort of back to they're feral, they're drinking from water wells, they're scavenging and running around like livestock. They're all dressed in like nearly no clothes, but she's got trousers and a top, and she's trying to blend into this world. I don't know. It was just a little bit of an issue for me, but I got over it pretty quickly.
Though I guess there's an element of like when we find out at the end that she is from a population of humans that are living.
I get that.
In some form of bunker, you know, maybe there was an element of like, maybe they did overthink this costume. But yeah, maybe we're giving it more credit than what it's due here.
But ultimately, Alex, I think this film is, for me at least, it was very entertaining. It sounds really belittling to say this, but it's a past the time, solid entry into the franchise that, you know, it doesn't upend the quality of what we've seen previously. It doesn't detract from the quality of what we've seen previously in the last trilogy. It's just like another worthy, solid, very solid addition to the franchise. And I'm willing to see more. You know, this isn't like, okay, I'm exhausted by this. I think they do a really smart thing with this franchise where they give us like 5-year gap between each film and let us have enough time that we want to kind of come back into this world and see what's going on now.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see where they take it next. I hope they take it down a more interesting route because, like I said, I do think this plays just kind of very safely into kind of stories and tropes that we've seen before. There was nothing particularly surprising about this film. So I'd like the next one to surprise me a little bit more. I feel like Dawn of the Planet and War of the Planet of the Apes did that mostly. I think War definitely surprised me. It can be quite a grim franchise at times. And you know, this follows it. There's some pretty grim stuff in here. Death of that gorilla was pretty traumatizing for a 12A as he's drowning. Yeah, that was pretty hardcore. But yeah,
it was good. I liked it though. Yeah. I liked it. But it was hardcore.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't really upset the status quo of these films. They've all been consistently good. This is probably my least favorite out of the new ones so far, but it's still a good film. Interested to see where they take it next and what they follow it up with and what kind of ideas they explore next. Because it's one of those kind of great kind of sci-fis where it always turns a mirror on modern day society and how we treat others and stuff, and how leaders arise and all that kind of stuff. So very interested to see where they take it next with all that. Maybe they'll do Brexit of the Planet of the Apes.
I don't think I'll be turning up for that one. On to our next film, Alex.
On to our next film. Let's do it.
So, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, is the latest entry from mastermind filmmaker George Miller, which sees a young Furiosa years before the events of Fury Road, snatched from her home, the Green Place, before falling into the hands of deranged yet charismatic warlord Dementus, played by Chris Hemsworth. Furiosa is dragged through many trials and tribulations as she seeks to avenge her childhood and kill the man responsible. Alex, this is a big movie.
It
One we've been
is.
excited about for a long, long time.
It is. It is. My history with the Mad Max films is a weird one.
Short,
Um,
I would say.
Short, yes. I had not seen any of them prior to when I saw Fury Road. I wasn't even planning on going to see Fury Road, I don't think, because I hadn't seen the originals. But I was in university at the time when it came out, and it was getting such rave reviews that I thought I can't miss out on this. So I remember walking down from my flat down to the Phoenix Cinema in Falmouth and watching Fury Road without, I guess, probably without much kind of knowledge as to what I was about to witness,
Mm-hmm.
and was completely blown away by that film. So much so that I never watched it again until recently, because I was always it was such a cinematic experience that I just assumed it wouldn't hold up on the TV. And in a way, I was kind of right, because that kind of explosion of sound and imagery and eyeball destroying action
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't translate as well on the small screen. However, it is still just a really, really good film in its own right, and I think it works because of its simplicity. Then recently, you and I and your lovely girlfriend Lauren
Mm-hmm.
watched Road Warrior and Thunderdome together. So I've now seen all apart from the very, very original Mad Max. So I've very much watched them out of order here. But I mean, like, what's your history with the Mad Max films, Chris?
I watched the original trilogy at quite a young age, probably not an appropriate age to be watching these films. My first interaction was Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, which is kind of, I think it's fair to say that that one is held up as the best of the original three. I think that's popular opinion. My dad introduced me to that film pretty early on, and it became a pretty staple film for us to revisit every year. Yeah, so I hold it in real high regard, and it really introduced me to like how world building can be character driven and could be the main vocal point for a film. I hear a lot of people, especially about these new Mad Max films, going like, "Well, I'm not going to watch this because where's Max? It's all about Max." I don't have that experience with these films, to be honest, Alex. Mad Max has always been about the wasteland, about these characters, about these factions going against each other, and these weird little interactions where you wouldn't get anywhere else in cinema. And that's what really attracts me to it. And a spectacle that George Miller brings to these projects are always an ambition to raise the stakes higher visually each time. And yeah, I'm really grateful for these two new films because I think he's done it again.
Yeah, and in Mad Max fashion, or at least what I know of it, it's a completely different beast than any film prior. It's almost like I guess there's more consistency here. There's more of a through road between Fury Road and Furiosa here, but he completely throws out the simplicity of Fury Road, which was just a chase scene that then turns around. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? There wasn't much more to it than that. There was some great world building stuff in there, but it was all just for kind of flair and excitement
It
and
was always
action.
peripheral. Yeah.
Here we're really kind of diving deep. A, into character, and B, into setting. Like what does it mean to live in this world, and how is it kind of divided and split up, and how do they work to create this kind of environment that is as grim as it is. It kind of works, I guess, for
Mm-hmm.
at least for a few. So yeah, this is very much an epic, I would say. Action. It is not just one big action film, although the action in it is incredible. It is actually kind of this very much a moving piece that delves deep into the character of Furiosa and her kind of upbringing, which we were only kind of teased at in the in Fury Road. But yeah, I mean, Charlize Theron played her really well in Fury Road. So much so that she became a bit of a favorite, and here the role is reprised by Anya Taylor-Joy, or at least for the most part, Anya Taylor-Joy, who plays a younger version of Furiosa. But even she doesn't turn up for a good hour into the film, where an even younger actress again is portraying her throughout her very, very young years after being kidnapped from the Green Place.
Yeah, and I thoroughly believe that all iterations of Furiosa, regardless of the actor playing them, is Furiosa. I didn't feel that I was taken out of the film at any point by. I think Miller did an excellent job at casting this role. But yeah, I mean, where do we start? I think Miller is a smart enough and self-aware filmmaker where he knows I can't just remake Fury Road again. But this is also a story, Alex, I don't know if you knew, that kind of he had in his mind for a long time. In fact, he had given the screenplay to Theron whenever they were filming Fury Road originally. And so this has always been in the back of his mind. So what manifests from here on then is the rare prequel where, yes, we know what the ending of this is going to be. We know where these characters end up, but it's the rare prequel that really works hard to expand this world, to expand our knowledge of everything going on. And because Fury Road teased aspects of background so little, but effectively, that we can't help but be intrigued of how this character got here. You're on board from the beginning. And it opens up, Alex, with such an intense opening 10, 15 minutes, this extended chase scene through the desert over multiple days where Furiosa has been snatched from her home. This is the first scene. It just starts right here. And we see her mother, who is kind of on this odyssey solo to get Furiosa back from the clutches of Dementus's grunts. And we just see some absolute badassery, mother protections, stuff kind of going on from the beginning, which is just, I was so emotionally invested from the get-go, and it really carried me over. Yeah.
And she has this dual mission as well, which I think makes it doubly interesting, where you have the idea of A, let's get Furiosa back, and B, these three guys who have turned up from Dementus's gang are aware of the Green Place now. So they also must be killed. So it's this race against the clock. They cannot point out where the Green Place is to Dementus, as it would therefore be a nightmare. So, you almost wonder at some points whether, because I don't think it's revealed immediately that it's Furiosa's mum. It's just one of the members of the gang. It's not until later revealed that it is her mum. But there is an element of like, is she going to shoot this little girl just in case? Like, is it one for all? Of save the many, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think obviously we know, Furiosa is going to make it out of there at some point. But it's really tense, and it's also this kind of great antithesis to Fury Road, and all the kind of films which feature a lot of cars. It's horseback for a bit as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, and just it uses sound to an incredible degree. Like it's a very quiet opening, punctuated by lots of loud gunshots, and then kind of the sounds of engines chugging along through this desert scape. And I think it sets up the film really nicely. And to be honest, is it one of my favorite parts of the film? Yeah, it might be one of my favorite parts of the film. Just that opening alone was just completely sucks you in.
Yeah, it's hard not to get emotionally involved at the beginning. And Miller doesn't need to. This is where he really shines as a filmmaker for me. I mean, we'll get into the thing everybody's talking about, that Anya Taylor-Joy actually only has 30 lines of dialogue, I believe, in this film. He really knows how to set stakes and build this world up and let the audience know exactly what is going on at any time without actually explaining it to us. We know what the stakes are of those three guys getting back to Dementus and telling him where this place is. We know the absolute horror of the fallout that's going to be, and the implications of that we can't help but be swept up from the beginning. And obviously this is just a prologue. This is a 5-chapter epic. This is a partway Tarantino meets Lawrence of Arabia with Fury Road in the middle. There is an absolute through line. I don't know if I've got a female-led revenge film that I've been absolutely as invested in since since the likes of Kill Bill. You know, it really reminded me of that, where I felt for 2.5 hours they managed to sustain the stakes of where we got to go, and Furiosa's mission to get back home, because she endures such hardship. I mean, it opens up, it really lets us know who this young girl is from the beginning, when she's tied to the back of a motorcycle, and she is so well trained by her people and her mother that the first thing she does when she's tied up is to chew through the gas line of the motorbike. You know, we know already what it takes to exist in this world, and it's not pretty, and it's great. We follow her later on in the story, where she has been sold by Dementus to gain control of Gastown. He sells her to Immortan Joe, who we all know is the big bad of Fury Road, and we hear her talking to another character where she says, you know, I need to get to this place, I need to, you know, but there's this hopelessness that no matter where you go, it's more than likely that wherever you're heading or think is going to be better is probably worse. That no matter how desperate and horrible your situation is, you probably are better staying put.
It is like one of the only kind of apocalyptic kind of landscapes, because I think there's a lot of, you know, when you think about zombie apocalypse and all that kind of stuff, you go, oh, what would I do? Oh, I do this, I do this, I do that. I'd go hide here and I'd do this, and I think I'd be able to survive. With the Mad Max world, I'm just like, I don't think I'd last one day, and I don't think I'd want to either.
There is that question, isn't it? You're like watching Furiosa, she's being carried through this, her whole 15 years in this story is being carried through these two simple ideas: get home and kill the guy responsible for it. And you're like, I don't know if it's worth it half the time. But yeah, I mean, you walk in any direction. It's Gastown, Bullet Farm, and the Citadel. And if there's nothing else going on apart from those three places, you walk in any direction for 3,000 miles and it's just salt and sand. So yeah, it makes it really... Furiosa is a really intelligent character for me too, because she does have many moments where she can escape, where any other film a character would try to get away, but she knows, she's being brought up or is smart enough and astute enough to know that now isn't the time. I will have a better moment later on. And it really gives us that time to breathe and really let that anger boil and fester. And whenever that anger is manifested and is released in these extended action scenes that are well spaced out, you know, it gives that vigor to the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so good, isn't it? Really, it's. And I know a lot of people have been complaining about the use of CGI because, it's kind of similar to something like Speed Racer. You know, it's very obvious CGI,
stylized. Very stylized.
But that's the key word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stylized. And I think you couldn't create this world in a convincing way with such outlandish, zany characters, to say the least, without also making the world replicate that.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's something there with YouTube's compression, where this film looked a lot better on the big screen than it did on a YouTube trailer, which I guess should be to be expected anyway. But
I also think Miller, he said he had been working on the film. He only finished the film 2 weeks before release.
Oh, wow.
So there's a chance that what you saw in the trailers wasn't the finished product too. I think he's on the record for saying that. But that's just the industry now, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is, I think the film looks incredible. I don't think, I think I had a few of those reservations going in as well. But I think, honestly, it looks just as good, if not better, than Fury Road. The action is the action is so well done in this. The sound design, maybe we were blessed with the IMAX screening of it, although not shot for IMAX. Like seeing it blown up on the big screen and getting that sound was just incredible. Yeah, really, really incredible sounding film. It's kind of unruly and it's expansive. And I would say maybe it probably could have done with a little bit of just kind of narrowing its focus a little bit. But do you know what? I was having a blast. I loved being in that world. Like I said at the start of this review, the simplicity's at the door. It's a lot more of a complex film here. A lot more going on. a lot more kind of politics and stuff going into play. It gets a little Game of Thronesy at times with the different kind of factions all kind of bartering with each other and going for war, or like deciding whether to go to war with Dementus, who is this just unhinged and ridiculously bad leader that somehow ended up leading a gang of like 1,000 motorbikes, which maybe we should talk about, because Anya Taylor-Joy is not the only star in this film. We also have a unhinged Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, it feels like Chris is being having this performance fester inside of him, waiting to release for quite a long time, which is exactly perfect for this character, Dementus. I think you're right. Dementus starts off as this sort of wannabe flamboyant leader, and he kind of thinks that he is righteous in a way. He is sort of like a self-anointed messianic figure in that way. He likes to think of himself. He has this really tragic, terrible looking cape that's made out of tarpaulin that he puts in his way.
Like a parachute, wasn't it? It was like parachute as well. Very interesting. You're like, where's this come from?
It's basically like a giant shower curtain lingering behind him all the time. And when he walks, even when he's trying to look, heroic or a bit larger than life, he can't help but fumble over it. Again, that's just part of Miller's great, sort of world building. But Chris Hemsworth really leans into that. And you feel like at the beginning where we meet him in the story, where he's just like in charge of a ragtag group of outlaws, that should have been his peak. That should have been where he started and stayed. And obviously, through bartering Furiosa and the powers that he has, he gets into a much higher position and ends up an unruly sort of terrible leader of Gastown, where he can't control his resources.
He can't even control his own people, can he? He can't feed them or do anything, and they almost are revolting against him. Nothing goes right for him, and he's just terrible. He walks in. He drives into the Citadel. After just finding it essentially, and just thinks he can rule the place immediately without even kind of scoping out what kind of stuff they've got going on, and they kind of like hand his ass to him pretty early on, and are just like, what are you even trying to do here? So it is quite funny. Has a slightly easier job of taking up a gas town, which becomes his kind of I guess his uprising, but also his downfall in the future, as he's just not cut out for the job. He's not cut out for the job. But yeah, Chris Hemsworth's having a lot of fun here. He hams it up. He's dialing up to 11. He's a completely wacky villain, almost pantomime-esque at points, but it really works. Not none of that is taking away from his performance. It does really work within the kind of world of the film, where you have these completely deranged characters anyway. To see somebody with that kind of charisma and stuff, just I guess trying his best and getting his nipples ripped off along the way,
and kind of enjoying getting his nipples ripped off.
Yeah.
He is sort of deluded. He has those temptations of he has delusions of grandeur, where he uses more eloquent words and phrasing at the wrong time to make himself seem a bit more flamboyant than anything. I think it's the illusion of flamboyancy than actually him being flamboyant. And it's interesting because he is kind of a grey character, where sometimes you're like, okay, is he being okay here? Is he actually being like a sort of empathetic human being? And then suddenly he just completely turns the opinion round. And I love at the end of the film where Furiosa it does something different, where it becomes a bit more of a conversation between the two of them at the end. This whole sort of ending to the vengeance. I think the last chapter is called Beyond Vengeance, chapter 5. And so he has this almost moment to tell his story, and George Miller just decides, no, that's not interesting. Anya Taylor-Joy just picks him up. Furiosa just doesn't let him have a word. And it's great because Anya Taylor-Joy is almost like a silent movie character. It's a silent rage that she has throughout this whole film. I think it's probably the best use I've seen of her since probably watching The Witch, or I can't even think of another film that used her as well. Just using these really vibrant eyes. He knows how to make her look great on camera, and really make that silent rage come to the forefront. I love Tom Burke in this too. Really surprising to see him in here. He's playing Praetorian Jack. And a romance kind of blossoms between the two of them in an organic way that doesn't feel.
It was actually kind of nice to see a little bit of love in the wasteland. You know what I mean?
Yeah, never. It seldom happens, and even when it does happen, it's not like, this isn't Dune in that way. It's very much pragmatic than anything, and it's more like, well, I got to have something in this world, right? You seem like the only decent person around here.
Even though his fate is kind of sealed, nobody's surviving the wasteland.
Yeah. Oh, it's so tragic. But I think I'm with you. I think the more you talk about this, you realize how generous this film is, and it is the longest in the franchise by far. It's 2.5 hours.
It's very long. It's very long.
I don't know if it felt like that to me, because I felt the movie was so generous and dense in what it was giving me, whilst not being overbearing. Where I was happy enough to have the full meal and just be glad that there's never George Miller-led Mad Max project, and perhaps there might be another one in the future he's teasing. I'd be really excited for that too.
It's very true. It's very true. I think I definitely felt the length, but I wasn't. I was kind of I was in a bit of a conundrum of like, well, I'm loving the film, and I'm loving being in this world, and I've spent quite a lot on the ticket. So, give it to me. But then there was also another part of me that was like, there are a few elements here which kind of, a few sequences that maybe go on a little too long, and maybe some of the kind of, we're over here now was maybe a little too unruly. But for the most part,
sometimes it drops the emotion. Sometimes that you've built up for Furiosa to have those moments of world building and breathing space. Yeah,
I did think, and I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but I did think the final showdown between Furiosa and Dementus was, and it's not because of the action, but I did think it was maybe one of the weaker parts of the film. It all of a sudden turned.
It was unexpected anyway.
It was unexpected, and I'm fine with that. Revenge is never shown to be something that is this glorious thing. It's usually something that kind of turns in on itself, and I think they maybe played that angle a little too hard in the dialogue, where it was very much like, you're just like me, we're one and the same, you and me. And
we have heard that before.
Yeah, there was a lot of dialogue exchanged, especially from Dementus' side, and I was like, no, I kind of get it, but also you haven't fully explored this theme throughout, so like, I'm not sure why you're bringing it up here. But what are your thoughts on that? Was one of the weaker elements of the film for me. Everything else, great, I think.
Yeah, I think it feels like a lot because the film hasn't really. It is upending the film of what it's been doing previously. I do quite like that theme of, vengeance is just like, this is a 15-year odyssey that she's been on just to get to this moment. What do you do in this moment? Is it going to be fulfilling? Is it going to be fulfilling for the audience if we just see him shot? I don't think so. I think they did the right thing by the character, but perhaps it just, again, give the theatrical Dementus just a little bit too much dialogue.
Yeah, maybe perhaps not the most subtle of endings, maybe.
Yeah, and I would have liked to have a little bit more, because his character is portrayed very grey with his past. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that humanity in him come towards the end, but perhaps maybe that might have hammed it up a little bit more. But I'm glad. I like the mystery of that character, and that stayed true to the end. But yeah, I think overall, this was definitely not a disappointment. I was sort of nervous about Furiosa coming into it. There's Can Lightning Strike Twice? Fury Road is such a, for me, I love Fury Road, and it's a revered, almost instant classic. So he had an impossible task. And it's crazy to see somebody at the age of 79 still going out into the desert with the same sort of energy of a youthful filmmaker making his first movie. So I hats off.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the kind of big summer blockbusters that we've we've been teased with and some we've seen so far. This has been the best of the bunch, I think.
Yes, see it on the biggest screen possible with the loudest sound you can get.
Loud. Make sure it's loud. The sound is everything in this film. And I was thoroughly entertained throughout. And that's kind of all I need from these kind of big films. Like, I just need to be entertained and show me some stuff I haven't seen before. And Furiosa just kind of spoon-fed me all of that. So I was, very, very happy. But it did make me think, Chris, out of all the big releases, maybe just this summer, like, is this the last one we're anticipating?
I mean, can you think of any other big franchise films off the top of your head that have the capability of reaching the desert power of Dune Part 2 and Furiosa? It is the year of the desert, after all.
Yeah. Maybe me from 5-10 years ago would have been like Deadpool, Wolverine. But as we have both discussed many a time on the podcast, we're kind of just not that enthused.
I never thought when I first met you, Alex, that I'd ever see the day that I heard you, of all people, say that. But here we are. Here we are.
But yeah, desert power, baby. It's been the year of sand.
Very, very good, Alex. Alex, I've been planning our next holiday for the film angle. But since we're a film podcast, I thought it would be a great idea if we stopped by some famous film locations, maybe stumble upon some famous landmarks, maybe meet some zany characters along the way, just really like immerse ourselves. Now, I've already booked some spots for us to go, but there's the catch. You have to guess where we're heading based on these clues. Are you up for it, Alex?
I'm up for it. Let's do it. I'm feeling nervous though. Like, I don't like being put on the spot, but I'll try my best.
It'll be interesting. I don't know if it really aids for a very successful trip. It could be dangerous.
Okay.
It could be life-threatening. We'll see. So I thought we'd kick it off with a trip which is quite just nice and easy, quite relaxed, to find a really nice small village, not too far away, where the residents are all gearing up for a really excited annual Village of the Year competition.
Okay.
Any ideas where that might be?
Not at the moment, no.
Well, they all seem really, really nice in this village. Okay. I read a couple of reviews online that saying people are just being disappearing, just dying, actually. But everybody still seems really cool. They don't really have much of a police presence. The police presence there is a little bit disinterested in everything going on.
Okay, is this the not so fictional town of Wells in Hot Fuzz?
It is indeed, Alex.
Brilliant. Or was it known as Wells in Hot Fuzz, or was it just shot in Wells?
They call it Sandford, Gloucestershire.
That's it. Yeah. No, see, the thing is now I only live just under an hour away from it, so I have actually visited the town in which it's been filmed many a time.
Exactly. So I wanted to, bring a little bit of logic to the table here. So if that town plans on being a dud, Alex, there's another one I was thinking of going to that is home of a very gothic mansion that apparently, legend has it, is haunted.
Okay.
You might want to mind your step, though, because I've read reviews that the ground around this area is very soft and can stain your shoes red.
Okay. All right. I think I know, but I can't remember the name of the film. Am I thinking Guillermo del Toro?
He might have frequented this place, yeah.
Am I thinking Tom Hiddleston?
Oh, well, he wouldn't be out of place.
He wouldn't be out of place. What is that bloody film called?
I will give you... Well, do you want a clue? The first word in the title is a color.
Crimson Dawn. No, not Crimson Dawn.
First word is right.
I don't know why I said Crimson Dawn. Sorry, Crimson Peak. What is Crimson Dawn? That is
Crimson Dawn. Is that not like a hero, a villain, or something like that?
Yeah, I feel like it is.
You should know. You're the resident superhero expert here.
Unfortunately, I am. Yeah, Crimson Peak. That was a great film.
I do
Would I
love
like
it.
to visit there? No.
A bit too foggy, perhaps.
Yeah. But
Right. Okay.
got a
There
bit
is
too much history.
too much history there. Well, okay, Alex. Well, last one, or we'll have to call it quits. How about something completely different? I'm thinking nice remote island, palm trees, cocktails by the beach.
Sounds more my style.
My style too, I think. Oh no, wait. It looks like there's something on here about there's genetically engineered super sharks that have spawned from an underwater facility. Do you know?
Oh dear. Is this the one that Samuel L. Jackson's involved in?
Yeah, I am seeing his picture here.
Deep Blue Sea? Deep Blue Sea? Is that what the film's called?
Yep.
Excellent. This one I didn't need as many a guess, or as many a clue, should I say, as a couple of the others there. But yeah, Deep Blue Sea, very trashy film, but a lot of fun, if I can remember.
To me, when I was a kid, it was like the adult film for me. It was like,
oh really?
Like watch it, like someone watching Big Deep Blue Sea on the TV. I'd be like, this is so cool. But watching it as an adult, a bit creaky.
Yeah,
just to say the least.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just being 10 years old and being obsessed with sharks or dinosaurs or anything that's got teeth. Probably is a part of it.
Yeah. Most like iconic death scene from one of those trashy films, really, because Samuel L. Jackson is the main actor in the film and dies pretty early on.
Yeah, a lot of the budget went there. So yeah, some pretty great guesses, Alex. I think we need to press pause on that idea for now. Maybe come back to it in the future. It doesn't seem like those places are really hitting the bill at the minute.
No. Maybe if you can find us somewhere a little bit safer, that would be
more relaxing.
for the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But next week, I think we'll switch it up a little bit more. Something new to put our film knowledge to the test. Something more safe.
Let's do it. Yeah, we're going to be trialing out these little features in our podcast.
This is a work in process, by the way.
This is a work in progress, but let us know what you think. You would like us to spruce it up a little bit in between the reviews, a little bit of a amuse bouche, as they may say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who says that.
Oh, it works to some degree. Yeah, I got plenty more ideas up my sleeve, Alex. You'll have to tune in next time to see what terrible idea I've got next.
Excellent. Can't wait. Now I'm going to have to make sure my brain is always working when we record these episodes. Okay, so this is the section of the show where we catch up with our ongoing series, our blind spots on the Sight and Sound greatest films of all time list. We are slowly making our way down the list of films that we haven't seen before, and this week we're on number 34. According to the Letterboxd list, anyway, which is the 1934 film L'At Allant, which was directed by Jean Vigo, and it follows a newly wedded couple, one of whom is the captain of the barge ship L'At Allant, and they travel down the Seine on a makeshift honeymoon with their fellow crew members. And as you can imagine, not everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Alex, how this film just kind of starts. It just hits the ground running. We instigate this film by the wedding has just ended and we're walking straight onto the boat to begin this honeymoon.
Yeah. A little bit of exposition from the guests along the way. She's a village girl. He's a city guy. What are they doing together, kind of thing?
And then it's here that we're introduced to the captain, sort of ship hands, the boy, and Le Père, who is played by Michel Simon. And we will definitely get into his performance because it is an all-timer.
Yes, love that guy.
Absolutely love that guy. This is kind of follows the trials and tribulations of a naive new relationship that really hasn't found its footing yet, and how that's tested on the lack of a better term, the sort of the shaky waters of this river journey.
Yeah.
It's just quite an interesting, very early look in cinema at a dynamic relationship. I do think it kind of falls privy to me a little bit of being quite perhaps overly simplistic, just because of time where we are now and how we've been treated to a multitude of complex human stories that this seems sort of cute in comparison. But the thing that really drives this film is visually. It is pretty outstanding and is doing a lot of inventive things from the very beginning of the film where you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know they were doing that early. And it's pretty spellbinding to watch. There's these very poetic moments that come out of nowhere every sort of 15 minutes where you're like, oh my goodness, this must have been absolutely transcendent back in the day.
Yeah, and obviously the year in which it was shot kind of lends to this idea of, or at least maybe from our naive brains, that you're in this crossover period between silent films and talkies, and a lot of the film is kind of stylized in almost like a silent film as well. But with dialogue throughout, with some of the best coming from Pear. It is Pear, isn't it? Pear
yeah.
himself. But then also a lot of the comedy coming just from the cats. There's a lot of cats in this film.
Oh, if you're a cat lover, this is like the ultimate cat film.
Really little cats at the very start. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, they're like all little kittens, but they all seem like really well trained. And there's one point in the film where there's just like a close up of a record player with like 10 cats around it, just playing around. It's like something out of the Aristocats or something. It's just like, it feels like Walt Disney couldn't have came up with this sort of like image of these cats aboard this this small intimate barge boat. But yeah, it's very visually interesting. I remember there's a scene at the very beginning where the bride Juliet is walking across the top of the barge boat, and it's almost like the very first use of green screen as ever being used, where she is superimposed onto this boat. I don't even know if it's a model or anything. I guess
maybe like projected.
Yes,
projection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, quite ghostly, because obviously it's an old use of that technology, of that idea, but there's something very haunting about that image and the use of fog and smoke around just to kind of make this little barge boat feel like the rest of the world doesn't really exist. We're kind of like in a vignette of this little story that's going on here.
Yeah,
and
it was a great setting. I do love the setting of the barge boat, especially because I wasn't expecting it either. Like, I hadn't done much research into this film prior to seeing it.
I thought it was going to be set in the ocean. I was the same as you. I've only seen the poster before.
Yeah, the poster makes it seem like it's a lot bigger boat, right? Or maybe I just glimpsed at it.
Yeah, it's giving me like White Star Line sort of vibes looking at the poster. Yeah.
Proper cruise liner.
But yeah, and that's it. I think it's very surprising from that point of view, and it does a really interesting job with the characters keeping you interested. Juliet and Jean, neither of whom are saints, I would say, to each other.
Especially not Jean.
Especially not Jean. Oh yeah, I mean the violent tendencies can be a little bit,
and also maybe we'll get into it later, but he leaves her in Paris, man, and that did not sit well with me, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and we're supposed to feel sorry for him after that. I don't know if that truly works too, but it is very flamboyant and it's in its use of like, love conquers all at the end. But yeah, it definitely, Jean Vigo definitely spends his time painting these two characters in their shades of light and dark. They're both capable of sweetness and indifference, but at the center of it is this real larger than life character, the pair, who is just this absolute sort of chaos entity aboard the boat, who is
he's really sweet though. He's really sweet.
He's very sweet. It's a little bit disarming because he's a very like appearances are deceiving character, and the interior of his cabin room aboard the boat is full of like what he calls curiosities, and it's like some sort of strange freak, like miniature freak show shop kind of going on.
Yeah, and he's well traveled from the war and stuff like that. Like he's been around the place.
Yeah, he's got tattoos that like resemble like what an indie metal band would have on their body these days. He's actually quite in chic at the moment. So yeah, he's really fun. He gives such a dynamic physical performance, fumbling around this boat, half intoxicated, but really caring and doing all these things with the cats, and he's got this little sidekick, this little boy who's on the journey with him, and there's a really funny sequence at the beginning with concerning flowers whenever the newlyweds are going to turn up at the boat, and they needed to be ready for them to hand these flowers to Juliet, and the flowers end up in the water. He's cursing at the boy. The boy goes into water and picks up weeds to replace them, and it's this really silent era sort of evocative bit of comedy set piece. And you're right, I think that's really interesting, Alex, that you mentioned that it's a silent film and a talkie meeting halfway. And that's kind of what is really culturally significant in cinema for this film. I believe that really it does feel like a complete crossroads in that time in cinema, and new techniques being explored, being adopted to really great end. There's this really great sequence. I love it when they are separated, like you said. He drops her off in Paris because isn't there a guy who is really into her and is flirting with her even though she knows he's married, and comes back to the boat and chasing her down and wants to bring her back into the town and everything. And obviously this sets Jean up. He is completely mad over this and leaves her in Paris to fend for herself, penniless.
All right, this is where I don't want to say the film lost me, but I lost all my kind of, I'm no longer rooted for this relationship anymore. And maybe I'm.
I don't know if I ever rooted for this relationship.
Maybe
really.
not. Yeah, no, I probably didn't. But maybe I'm overthinking this. But like leaving her in Paris is almost a death sentence. They don't have phones. They have no way of getting in contact with each other. Even if he was to go back, he doesn't know where he's going to meet her. He doesn't know where she is. There's no way of just like getting in touch in a random place. I don't know. Am I overthinking this just with our modern day sensibilities of just being able to text somebody and be like, "Oh, meet me at this cafe. I'll see you then." Sorry about the argument, kind of thing. Like to me, it was like you might never see this woman again. Now you may have condemned her to death. She's just a village girl in Paris. What's she gonna do? She ain't got a penny to her name.
Luckily, she has the gumption to know where he is going and gets herself to that destination. But yeah. Yeah, it's not a good start to a relationship, let's just say. But yeah, so maybe it's perhaps hard to emotionally invest on these moments. Like I said, there's this beautiful sequence where he's on the barge boat still and she is somewhere in Paris and they're both sleeping in bed, but obviously in different parts of the country. And but it's a love scene without two people being together. So they're both being intimate with each other without being in space. And it cuts to and fro. This beautiful piece of score is playing in the background. And it really does feel like this lightning in the bottle piece of cinematic, visual that is really poetic and beautiful to watch. It's just a shame I didn't feel the emotional half because of I wasn't so into the characters. But, at the end of this is Pear's film. This is Michel Simon's film. I know he is the third Bill. He's the third Bill guy in this film.
He does go after her as well, doesn't he? He's almost the savior of this film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go out with him. I might not get back home or anything like that. But yeah, he is so fun, and I think that's really kind of where I'm at with this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I liked it. I thought it was a nice film. I feel similarly that I didn't fully emotionally connect with it. If the film was maybe higher up the list or lower down on the list, should I say?
Yeah.
Down in those kind of 90s area. I understand it had a massive influence on like Truffaut and stuff like that, and really kind of instigated a lot of the kind of things that we now know as a French New Wave. Was very much, the Truffauts and Yogodards were very much inspired by this film, and a lot of old school filmmakers regard this film very highly. So from an influence point of view, I'd be like, yeah, it's on the list. But we are now in the kind of top end of the list, the best of the best. I'm not sure it justified it for me. If I was making the list, it probably wouldn't make it.
I feel bad for saying this, but I tend to agree with you. It's not like I go into watching these films on the list going like, oh, we're getting into the top 40 now, impress me. I try to, it's because that is just damning and you will never be satisfied in that point of view. It's best just to kind of go into these things and just say, all right, I'm watching a movie. Forget about the list in general.
Yeah,
it's
supposed to be good.
It's supposed to be good. Yeah, exactly. So if it amazes me, wow, even a bonus. But yeah, you're right. Once we're starting to get in this top 40 portion now, and I've seen 20, 30 films on this list that I like a lot more for the first time. So yeah, I really get its historic significance. And there were moments where I was enthralled. I could tell I was seeing something for the first time, but those moments weren't quite enough to sort of substitute the lack of feeling I had for the most part.
Yeah. It's a shame.
But that sounds like a poo-pooing on the film.
It does.
It's still great. It's still great.
We still both like the film. We still both very much like the film. I guess we are probably just straying into that kind of comparison place now as we're getting closer and closer to finishing it. So maybe we need to stop doing that as we keep going further on. But
I think so.
But it's a good film. I liked it. It's a good film. And the director, unfortunately, died not very long after completing it. In fact, I don't think it was very soon after it kind of made its premiere in Paris. Jean Vigo, the director, was 29 when he passed away from complications with tuberculosis. And I think he was very ill during the filming of it as well. And from what I can tell, just led a life of being quite ill a lot of the time. So very unfortunate to have lost somebody who was clearly a great filmmaker so young and probably so early on in their kind of filmmaking career. But
yeah, for sure.
What a legacy to have, eh? So here we are, 2024, still, considered one of the greatest films of all time.
Yeah, and wouldn't he be so glad to know that in 2024 that two guys just sitting here talking about his film and saying it's not one of the best in the list.
Yeah, there is that. There is that.
Very good, Alex.
That is us coming to the end of this rebooted new episode of the Film Angle. But what are we going to talk about next week? Well, we actually thought we'd mix it up again next week and do something we haven't done in a little while. And maybe something we should do more of when there's less films coming out in these weeks in between the blockbusters and stuff like that, and do a top 5. And we thought, we've rebooted. We've been... the logo has been remade. Why don't we talk about our top 5 favorite kind of reboots / remakes?
I see what you did there.
You see what I did. But when we first kind of discussed this idea, we went down a whole path of like putting so many rules and restrictions on it. But
yeah, it was getting very complicated very quickly.
Yeah, how do you define a remake? What defines a reboot? So I think like pretty much no rules, but because we've spoken about 2 reboots essentially this week, I think we'll take Mad Max and the Planet of the Apes films off the list, right? Is that,
or else it could be like an exercise?
Yeah, we'll just talk about them again. We'll just talk about them again next week because they are probably some of the best.
They are definitely in the conversation.
They would definitely be in the conversation. So we'll take them off the list. Remakes, reboots, whatever. Top 5. Keep it in the theme because that is exactly what we're doing as well.
Yeah. Bring on the research.
Yes, let's do it. We're recording late, so we have less time this time.
Yeah.
Let's
the
get
cramming session.
But I'm really looking forward to it, Chris. Really looking forward to it, and to do something which hopefully is quite interesting.
Will be indeed.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to the latest episode of the Film Angle podcast. Just want to say massive thank you again to Alfie for this new lick of paint and this new theme tune, which will close out the episode as well. But on top of that, I have condensed our outro, so no longer will I be rambling apart from this bit now.
It just fades into nothing usually. If you've heard the show recently, we are both guilty of that. Just never really quite sat down and worked out how to wrap it up. So here it goes.
Here we go.
before I end up going on forever.
Drum roll, please.
That has been the episode for this week. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or review. We really do appreciate it.
If you'd like to keep up to date with us, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Film Angle. And be sure to catch us next week for more cinematic discussions.
I'm Kris.
And I'm Alex.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.